Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, welcome back to the Simulationist podcast, all you simulationist listeners out there.
Simulates?
I tried Simulates one time. I was thinking...
Simulons?
Simulationists themselves.
Simoleons?
Because you know how the colonist, the Times colonist, was like for colonists, for British colonists in BC?
Yeah.
So we're the Simulationists. Anyways, it is...
Can we officially name the people who listen to our podcast Simoleons?
Simoleons. Well, I was thinking about that. I like, maybe let them name themselves. I mean,
okay.
But, I don't know. This is iteration 112 of the Simulationist podcast. Today we're recording this on the 26th of October, 2014.
The weekend before Halloween.
My name is Josh Trelevin.
I'm Ryan Kirkby.
And, we're here for another simulating conversation.
Ideally, yes.
Ideally, yes. That's the idea.
So, what have you been up to this week, Josh?
What have I been up to? Playing lots of Minecraft, watching lots of movies.
Oh.
I'll tell you two major things I've been doing in Minecraft.
Okay.
I joined a new server, like a server community. I'm sort of intending to stick with. We'll see how long, we'll see how I get along with the people, because it's sort of people I don't know, but it's called the Rock Block server, and it's just a small server that I happened to come across, and I asked if I could join them, so
so it's a closed server, not just open for anyone all the time.
They are accepting applications, but I don't know. I don't know how they, I haven't learned about their process, so I don't know how lucky I was to actually get on. I think they're somewhat, what do you call it? Discriminating, somewhat, but not too discriminating. Obviously, I got on, so they're not too discriminating, but.
You just got to make sure, your name isn't like TMT, blow them all up.
And I recorded one, I did a video of me going on the server and being like, hey, I'm on the server. And
so is there a lot of spam stuff going up through the filter?
Not in this one. It's pretty low key. It's there was
nice.
3 other people on when I went on at the most.
That's not bad, because the one thing that really keeps me from going back on to, the big servers that I've found and looked up is that there seems to be, constant, oh, hey, vote for the person of the week sort of thing, gain so many points here and do this and that, and it keeps popping up, and there's so many people talking all at once. It's I just want to, is there any way to close this little thing? Can I just play the darn game, and, maybe interact with people if they pop up or something,
Yeah.
Can I just try my little skyblock thing in peace? Do I have to see that constant scrolling at the bottom corner as I go?
Yeah, well, Skyblock seems like an odd one to do on a server. You'd think you would just do it single player.
The thing is, the server that I play Skyblock on, you can invite other people onto your Skyblock, so you can show them off. People can say, okay, you need to do this better. This is what you're doing wrong here. Try doing it this way instead, and you'll find everything's working properly. And that's why you keep falling off the side of the earth.
Yeah, as if you need a tip to how not to fall.
Well, why does the water keep spilling out here? It's well, you've forgotten to put this in with your design as you're trying to build whatever it is you're building. Yeah.
So that was one thing. The other thing was, did I mention last week that I was searching for a mesa?
Yes, you one of the few biomes that you're looking for is mesa.
Well, I spent another way too long searching, but I finally ended up.
Well, you are in a large biome area. It's going to happen that you need to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, in a way, I do regret the choice, but in a way, I think it's still going to be awesome and pay off, because I have this huge mesa biome now. I finally found it. It's it just goes, like, you can walk through Mesa for, like, days of Minecraft time.
Oh, my.
It's, like, multiple days worth of travel. So, yes, I found my Mesa, and now I'm just trying to find the edge of it. Like, I found one edge is sort of in the ocean, which I didn't think was, like, didn't really make a lot of sense to me, because I think of that sort of, the Mesa is like kind of Grand Canyon type thing.
They've never been too big on that sort of thing. I've seen desert right next to Arctic terrain.
Yeah, true. So I'm trying to get to the other side of it to see what's on the other side and see, it might be something interesting. Actually, I kind of like the unusual combination, so it wouldn't be too bad if it was something weird like taiga or who knows.
I know when I was searching potential new maps, because I was using a MIT to look at some seeds, because I was looking for some particular combinations. And one of the combinations was like, well, it's not like a make or break, but if I can find a desert next to like the Arctic area, I could have a lot of fun with abusing these two horribly, next to each other biomes.
Yeah.
But it never came up, and I wound up finding my 3 great biomes just separated by a little bit of ocean, so I went with that.
It would be kind of interesting to, like, build a wall between them or something like that, or, like...
Well, I was thinking of, like, finding exactly, if there's, like, a straight line I could split, and then, like, forcing a town over there so that half of it's in the Arctic and half of it's in the desert.
Oh, another, so I found a Mesa, but I didn't actually do much with it. But another thing I was doing this weekend was, I was playing around, but my brother, he likes to do, like, Minecraft mods and stuff, and he's always trying to push me to try new things, and I was like, I like my own stuff. But I ended up getting and playing, the 2, World Painter and MC Edit.
I've heard good things about both of them.
Yeah, they're fancy world editing tools for Minecraft.
I take a little bit of time to get used to them, but from some of the products I've seen, like people have put out some amazing, just stop what you're doing and look at these city sort of images. My goodness.
Yeah, exactly. So we had some fun playing around with it. We didn't we were kind of sharing a computer because I was over at my parents' place for the weekend. So they only have 2 computers there between like a whole, I don't know. Depending on who's there at the time, it's like about 4 or 5 people all sharing the computers, and they're all like Minecraft age, at least Minecraft and older. So everybody sort of wants a chance at the computer. So it's hard to get time. But then
so what you're saying is you need to save up, get yourself a laptop, and dedicate it yourself, and let them decide who plays what. When.
I mean, if I brought a laptop, then that would be like one more computer to add to. So it would help for sure, but it would still be a little bit like people would want to be like taking turns and stuff. But
I mean, if they take turns on their computers, you've got yours.
Well, yeah,
that's why it's called your computer.
Yeah, I mean, I like to share, but
but it's still fun to like when you got younger siblings, is to put that point on their head, and then let them have it.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was a lot of like my brother kind of figuring out what the commands are, because there's a lot of stuff to sort of take in to figure out how to actually work those programs. We didn't get particularly far. We got to the point where we can sort of build a river, and then he wants to recreate the Battle of Normandy with the D-Day invasion of Normandy.
Oh my, that's going to be an interesting project.
Yeah. So he's got to start on it. He's building walls and airfields, and he's got the coast ready. Although it could use some work probably, but he's got it. They
don't have much for barbed wire though in the game normally, do they?
Yeah. I wonder if you could use cactus or something, just retexture it.
Yeah, that's effectively what it'd be, is utilize just a little bit of the iron sort of thing in a different combination shape to make so many lengths of barbed wire, and then it just affects you the same way as cactus does.
Maybe like an X shape of iron, something like that? An X
something
shape
like
in the
crafting
table?
I could see that working, and that'll get you like 4 to 6 things of barbed wire.
I bet you there's a barbed wire mod. It's funny, like I haven't seen that. He's downloaded, like my brother's, I downloaded for him and installed for him like a couple of mods. Like Flan's mod does a lot of like vehicles and different interesting weapons, but I don't think I've seen any barbed wire in that mod, but I haven't looked through the whole thing.
I have come up with some ideas that have very heavily called for something you can place for pain, and I was thinking either wall spikes or floor spikes, but barbed wire would do the trick too, I think. Now, here's the thing. Would you have barbed wire, like, hurt you all the time, like a cactus, just by being too close? Or would you have it hurt you whenever you move, as in trying to get out of the barbed wire causes the scrapes and scratches?
I like the thought of only when you move. Like, when you move, that's when it happens. And somehow being able to, like, maybe you could shift and sneak through or something like that.
Oh, sneak through causes no damage? I can dig that. Still wind up killing a lot of villagers before it winds up, being a good safety measure for a town.
Well, I wonder, like, if you modded it in, should you turn that damage thing off for villagers, or just leave it on and just...
I think villagers are naturally so stupid, by most intents and purposes, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As one less thing that'll hurt them, but it's still so, there's so many things out there that will get them. It's almost not worth it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you got a big enough towns where the gate walls sort of stuff, is not something where villagers will normally go, then you can barbed wire up the whole place and then just make sure you sneak on through as you're leaving, and it's safe and sound for everyone inside. Yeah. Hooray!
So I think that's basically what I've been doing. I watched some movies, but we'll talk about the movies
in just a little bit. Yeah, it's a pre-main topic. As for me, I've been watching a decent amount of stuff too. Not movies this week, although I did catch my fair share of old movies and all that. I'm a little peeved that I haven't seen Dracula Dead and Loving It on TV yet. I think it's a great comedic, vampire thing. Leslie Nielsen, Peter McNichol, all sorts of good actors and actresses in there. It's a Mel Brooks comedy, sort of thing, and it seems every year I look and it's just not playing anywhere, and it's like, what's going on, guys? Is it cost too much to play it on cable TV? It shouldn't. It's good stuff, but I don't know. So I'm a little miffed about that. But that's okay, because I've been getting into some of the stuff I've had for a little while, some Ghost in the Shell to watch, and I just never got around to it. And I started watching it. It's like, okay, my daughter needs to go to sleep, so I got to go somewhere else in my house, and I got to just be by myself. It's like, well, you could watch some Ghost in the Shell in this room here. And so I started watching some of the standalone complex, the little half-hour episodes, and I fell back in love with it. I was watching it on TV on the channel that became Spike. But then once it became Spike TV, it's like, oh, no, none of this stuff is on here anymore. It's like, no, there I go.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't played properly in order, so it's all a little muddled in my head as to what happens when and how.
Was Spike the Nashville network?
I think Spike's one of the national American ones.
The Nashville?
Oh,
TNN? Was that Spike?
I have no idea what the heck it was before it became Spike TV.
That might be a different thing.
All I know is like one night out of the week I got to go home, get changed out from my work clothes, sit down. My roommate was there. Both my roommates and my roommates, like a wife, estranged wife sort of thing. And we'd all sit down and we'd watch some Cowboy Bebop, and we'd watch some Ghost in the Shell, and it was some good quality stuff, really deep things. And then all of a sudden, nobody gets to watch it. We're Spike TV now. Enjoy your 4 hours of CSI. And I'm like, well, CSI is good, but come on, guys.
So what do you think of Ghost in the Shell? You like it a lot. Like, how many dwarves would you give it out of 13?
That's the thing, though, is I like it. I deeply like it. The animation quality is absolutely top-notch. Great voice actors and actresses. The autonomous tanks, for some reason, are voiced in like a young kid style. So despite the fact they have very heavy armaments and cannons, they speak like kids and have fun like kids and all that.
Okay.
So this is it's entertainingly weird in that sense. And its own internal rules. Like, if you can't do this with the machinery, then it can't be done. It's not just somebody's like, oh, and then I program something that allows us to circumvent. No. Plays very hard with its own fictional rules, and it's very unwilling to break that stuff without there being like, oh, you could possibly do that, but you'd have to be such a ace crack hacker. It's almost impossible to do it live while you're doing something else. And so it has its own it feels mentally solid when you put your mind into the reality of their neo future Tokyo place. And I respect that. I deeply respect it, but there's something about the Ghost in the Shell stuff. I watched the movie back in the day, and I liked it so much I didn't want my roommate to watch it. So in my own mind, it's like, no, you are not going to get the deep levels it has. It has so many, many deep topics on the concept of what constitutes like intelligence and humanity, and I don't think you're going to get it. I don't want you to watch this because you're just not going to enjoy it the same way I did. And it's weird. I don't get that with other series. I've loved Firefly. I want to share it. Dr. Horrible sing-along blog. Love it. Want to share it. Cowboy Bebop, yeah, let everyone have watch an episode or two. Play the music, great music. Let everyone hear the music over on YouTube, man. But for some reason, Ghost in the Shell, it's like my precious. I want to hoard it away because for me at least, it has some nice essences. It's like everything fires right for me. This is something so good that I find it to be very, to paraphrase Gollum, very precious. I don't want to share it. I don't want to other people to not get it at the same depth I do. So it defies the dwarf rating logic of everything, and it confounds me just to think about that. Because on the one hand, like as I said, it fires all my neurons. I'm enjoying every episode, even if they're only 20-something minutes long a piece. And I guess I could pause and stretch out commercials as I go get something to eat or drink, and make it a full half hour. But no, I don't want to. I don't want to stop. I want to keep watching that darn thing the whole way through. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to keep it to myself. I get greedy about it, and I find that very weird. I don't know why I get so greedy about it, but they must all be mine, and they're not for you. Don't watch it. It's for me, just me.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's how I find I'm gonna have to spend some time sitting down and thinking about like why I'm so greedy about this one series.
I can't even begin. Well, I mean, I know people get proprietary about. I mean, that's a phenomenon that we're familiar with among geek culture, is that people like a thing and they think, well, our little club, we like this thing, and we don't really want like normies to be in on it too.
Well, I suppose it might be like the kind of person who is like, oh hey, let's sit down and watch a movie, and then you catch the other person texting and they're not paying attention to the movie, and you love the movie and they're not paying attention to it, and it's like, why must you tell me? Am I like preemptive, making sure that doesn't happen? It's like, you're not going to enjoy it on the same levels. You're not going to watch it with the depth I've watched it. Just don't watch it all. Keep away from it. Your plebeian hands cannot handle the truth it holds.
Oh, okay.
And like, is that what I'm doing? I don't even realize. Like, I'm already skipping 2 steps ahead in the future and making sure that people can't text or do something else as they're doing it. They're not, if they're not going to be into it like I will be, then they can just get their filthy hands off it. Get their filthy, undeserving eyes away from its screen.
Okay.
So yes, this is something I'm going to have to wind up sitting down. I go to bed tonight and I'm just going to lay down in the darkness and think to myself, why?
Well, I guess of all the things, that's one of the less harmful things that you could be thinking about in the darkness to yourself. So.
Well, I find the dark midnight hours are the best hours to be a philosopher. So. Hopefully, more people out there decide to pick up midnight philosophy.
That sounds like it should be a band name, right?
Midnight Philosophy. Okay, I can dig that. You know what though?
Maybe.
I'm not gonna call dibs on that one. That's out for anyone who wants to claim it. If you're like a hipster indie band and you want to call yourself Midnight Philosophy, well, go for it. If you want to do I can actually see that work for some lighter forms of the rock.
Light rock.
Yeah, nothing heavy, nothing like Metallica or Megadeth or anything. That it's too light for that.
Well, it does have the midnight in it, so it does have a little bit of darkness. Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, that's
rock.
why it's able to get into the rock. But yeah. I mean, it's not like Midnight Sacrifice. Those are the Midnight Sacrifices for the people that do like a Megadeth cover. But I mean, I hope more people out there than just me decide to, analyze their day and what things, caught their attention. Because I find for me, it really helps me out with my dreams. I don't have dreams like, oh, work was so horrible today. I didn't go to bed grumpy, and you wind up sleeping all night thinking about work, and then you wake up and you got to go to work. It's like, I just got done with 8 hours of work. What am I doing going to work again? So if you think about what caught up me, what was it that's really still, causing my brain to stir about that situation? And you unravel that riddle, untie that Gordian knot, and all of a sudden, It doesn't hold any power over you. You fall asleep, and next thing you know, you're dreaming about like going through Candyland. Hooray! Not 8 hours of dreaming about work. So,
well, I dream of Minecraft.
yeah, I've had a few dreams of the Civilization games, but that's just because I overplayed before going to sleep. Or I remember there were some times where I'd have a few days off in a row, and I'd have like 3 days off, and I'd play for 2 straight days, and then I'd sleep for 1 day, and that third day of sleep sort of thing was basically me playing Civilization in my head.
Yeah.
One more turn, one more turn, one more turn, one more turn. I'm glad I broke that donkey. That's no longer, on my back. For now, there'll always be another game on the horizon.
Yeah.
But actually, speaking of games, that's one of the other things I was doing this week.
Okay.
I played the Marvel Avengers Alliance, and I get most of the stuff done. But for a while, what I've been avoiding is the classic encounters. And what they do is they say, okay, here are some guys you use. You can't change them out for anyone else. You don't get any other people. And here are the people you're going to face. And the rules are slightly different. Like, your abilities are slightly modified. Like, for instance, if you have Emma Frost, the White Queen, her psychic tap won't just, cause massive damage when somebody attacks. If you do it on the right person who's weak-willed, and they'll have a nice little debuff called, weak-willed, it will mentally control them. So, like, for instance, whenever someone else attacks your guys, this mentally controlled person will pound on them as a free action. And so it changes things up, and I have to admit, Playdom, who runs the game, has not made the easiest fights in there. A lot of times it actively boils down to, do you get a chance to move first? Yes. Then you have a chance at winning. If the enemy gets to the first attack, you cannot win the fight. You basically have lost 10 energy. You might as well just, shut the browser down, start it up again, and go back in. You'll save yourself time that way. So I've been avoiding those because I found them so frustrating and so just like almost unfair to the point of just it makes me rise the bile in my stomach up to the base of my throat. But you know what? There's some nice like if you get all 6 of them done per chapter, then that gets you 5 gold bars, which is the premium currency, and it gets you towards like a new costume. There's only one way to get the costume, and you gotta get all the achievements and get perfect chapter completion. And some of the costumes are getting pretty sweet, so I'm going back and I found a nice spot on their forums. It's like, okay, here's links to all our discussions for all these battles, and hopefully there's some tactics you can learn from each one. And I'm going through, and I'm making some decent progress in this last week, and I'm very happy. Okay, I'm sitting down, it's like, okay, what am I doing for this fight? It's not just a click, this is the most powerful attack ability, click that. No, sit down, look what people have said. Do I need to change things out here? Change out like into a different costume. Do I need to do this? What order do I go in? And I'm sitting down and I'm thinking much more tactically minded, and I'm bringing my whole self, not just click this and then Alt tab over to another game, and and then scroll through Facebook a little bit more. I was like, I'm sitting down. I'm going to do this right. And yeah, I've gotten a chapter and a half of special completion done that way. So I'm quite happy with myself for actually going back and doing the stuff I probably should have done about 7 months ago. But in my defense, I needed some other currencies. I can only get in other ways, and I was busy doing that stuff there. Now that I'm caught up, I've gotten all the recruitable heroes. I could try going for their special costumes that you have to spend the points on, that you have to earn the currency the same way, but I've been doing that one map over. I've been grinding the heck out of that one map just for points, and it's like, I want to do something else. And like right now, they opened up a new chapter, but I haven't started it yet because it's like I've left some stuff in the previous chapters undone. So I want to clean house before I start on something new.
Sure.
There's 2 fights I need to get a certain point value on. I haven't been able to get yet. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to see, okay, which characters work best together? How do I get the most damage? How do I get the highest score? How am I going to do this? Let's make this work right.
Sure.
And so I'm enjoying just bringing my A game rather than just click it. It's a Facebook game, whatever. Click. I kill everyone I go on. But they're actually incorporating some of the stories from the comics into it, and I'm really wanting to get into that.
Oh, cool.
Like, for the second entire chapter, they've had this mysterious circle of 8, and they're crazy people doing crazy things. Who can understand them? Nobody. And turns out they are part of It was, I think it was Fear Itself. It was the comic thing, and that not Thor, but Odin, his brother, like his older brother, was supposed to rule, but he was a horrible tyrant, and so Odin basically put him in a box and sealed him away, and forgot to tell anyone he ever existed. But he's out now, and he has hammers raining down upon the earth, and you touch the hammer, and you become worthy. You know, like the Thor's Mjolnir hammer. Whoever holds this hammer, if they be so worthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy's got 8 of these hammers. And so far in the game, like, they're being like, oh, we found impact sites. And so far they found impact sites, but it wasn't until the last chapter that someone actually managed to get there before the hammer was removed. So I might actually also want to go through and start doing some detective work. And it's like, okay, someone had to have picked up these other hammers. What hammer, was picked? Like, when was this crater found here? What impact was done when? And what bosses have we not seen since that point in time? I want to figure out who these bosses are, because they did have. Do you know Sin? She's the Red Skull's daughter.
No.
That's basically what you need to know. Red Skull had a daughter.
Yeah.
She has like red, she was like, oh, redhead, and then later on in the comic she winds up, acid bath. Oh no, now I look like I've got a red skull too. But within this one, she was just the beautiful redheaded daughter of the horrible evil Nazi man, and then she got a hammer, and now she is Skarn, and she is like the herald of the worthy sort of thing.
Ooh, cool.
And so she's like, oh boy, new villain, yay, someone different.
Yeah.
But in this last thing is She-Hulk picks up one. And she becomes Skarn, the breaker of men. And it's like, oh, that was actually really awesome, because She-Hulk was one of the worst heroes in the game. She only costs 15 points, so she's a cheap hero, and her point tally shows.
Okay.
She is nowhere near the Hulk for quality. I mean, even if you get all the little extra things to help buff her up and do this and that, she still wasn't seen as being like the same as like worthy of like the Hulk. I mean, Hulk is awesome, and she's just like, oh yeah, she's the other green gamma person, whatever. But this one with her, like with the hammer and her abilities, she's become better. She does more, and she's less of a waste hero. And in this new chapter that's come up, the other worst hero, Luke Cage. Power Man, he apparently gets a hammer, and he becomes the Breaker of Worlds. No, the Breaker of Worlds. Sweet. And so they change his abilities around, so like instead of Sweet Christmas, it's Sweet Ragnarok. And fun little things like that. And so instead of like, he has one ground pound thing that starts knocking down everything above you, and oh no, every time you start your turn, you get a chance of something falling on your head. And so it's like bringing down the house. And when he's Null, the Breaker of Worlds, it's not bringing down the house, it's bringing down the heavens. So when he pounds it, he shatters the earth to shatter the heavens above. And so it's like the same ability, but at least it's named a lot more rockin'. And he looks more badass. And so it's nice that Playdom has at least acknowledged, okay, you were using these heroes, in the PvP just so you could lose, and that way you could make easier fights later on. You're doing it to take a fall. And so you'd have all these people in PvP like, oh yes, I have She-Hulk and, Luke Cage on because I think they are totally worthwhile characters. Wink, wink, wink. Oh no, you've killed us all. I guess you win, and my combat score goes lower, so next time I have to go for a PvP fight, I don't have to fight a big bad with really cool abilities. It's some other chump with the same characters set up to take another fall. And, every day you do so much PvP and you get a prize. So that was why everyone was doing to get their score low. So they have easier fights, so they wouldn't have to spend 2 hours a day fighting these harsh fights to get their 5 wins and all that.
Okay, yeah.
So it's nice that Playdom said, okay, apparently these guys suck so much in the game, because they're good heroes. I like them in the comics, but they're so bad in the game, mechanically and all that. They are what you use to take a fall. They are the glass chin you put up to, oh, you knocked me over. And so they said, okay, no, you actually want to play them as good heroes and all that. Here's some story-wise. How did they improve? Well, they grabbed a mystical, Norse hammer, and they became more badass than ever before, and like actually worthy of putting into the field. And I'm digging that.
Cool.
And I find it very worthwhile prizes to go after. That said, between you and me, I actually would have liked a Jennifer Walters She-Hulk, where she's not the She-Hulk. She's actually a person who is a lawyer, and anything you do, she will subpoena, she will stop you, and she will prosecute you. So anything you try and do against her, it'll be just a massive debuffs against you. She like flags you with red tape because she's a lawyer.
Okay.
Something that I think would have been a fun one. Maybe release that for another 10 points as a nice little cheap fun thing for people to play around with. But you know what? The Breaker of Men sort of thing with the Mad Norse Hammer. And it's unique. They had different characters be the chosen worthy in the Fear Itself storyline. And the Plato said, you know what? It was a good story, but we're going to take our own approach with it, with our own guys. We're going to make sure it's our own story. And I always approve of that. Take the story and make it your own. So I like to see that, because people will complain, oh, how dare Plato do this? How dare they do that? No, they're at least making the story their own. They're changing it to fit what the story they're trying to tell.
Yeah.
And I dig that, and I respect it.
Yeah, I like it. Or just not being a part of that, but I think that sounds like a good way to go.
The philosophy of what they're doing. This was a good story. People had some qualms, but we're going to take the premise and we're going to roll with it for our own stuff.
Yeah.
Although the concept of like a Norse-powered juggernaut would be pretty groovy, too. He was one of the ones who picked up the hammers.
In the comics?
Yes, yes. But, I mean, that would also set itself up because eventually he, loses his powers of Cytorak, because he's not a mutant, although he's, on the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which, by the way, is a horrible name. If you're going to try and, prove your superiority, don't call yourself the Evil Mutants. Just be the Brotherhood of Mutants.
Yeah.
Of mutants for mutants, something like that, man. No, we're the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Yeah, not the best naming choice he ever did there, Magneto. Oh, well. But when he got the power, the Norse power, the various heroes were able to go to the deity Cytorak and say, dude, he's double dipping from the power well. And so he lost his Cytorak powers.
Oh.
Which is interesting because if anyone, because I think it's not this year, maybe it might be 2016, they are doing a Doctor Strange movie. And that will be coming out. But Doctor Strange says things by, the Vishanti, and I deny thee here, and he calls out things and all that, and that actually has it's not just calling out random names and all this sort of stuff. It's like they have a false pantheon of things to call upon, and Cytorak's actually there. If he wants to imprison someone, he will I call upon the crimson bands of Cytorak, and all of a sudden crimson bands form around you. No, you can't move anywhere. You're stuck. And it's the same thing as with Juggernaut, in effectively a semi-unrelated character. It ties them together into a greater Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, they managed to convince Cytorak, nope, you lose your powers, and I think right now Colossus has them. So Colossus is the new Juggernaut. So if they do give the one power to Juggernaut in the game, it's, a new costume down the road potentially for. Some other characters. Maybe this time it won't be Piotr Rasputin, the Colossus, who winds up getting the power of Cytorak. Maybe it'll be someone else. Maybe it'll be the Thing. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Maybe it'll be someone else that they give it to. Maybe, who knows? They could have a lot of fun with it. And you know what? I think if they do go down that road, I will pleasantly be waiting to see what they do with it, because they will make it their own. One way or another. And people will complain, but I don't care.
Right. Okay.
So that was my two big things this week.
Yeah.
Other stuff, I've been doing, but nothing as major as that.
All right. Cool.
But we did watch a movie this week, and we're going to do a little review for it, I believe.
I guess, we're doing a short. Well, we'll see how long.
Hopefully,
it goes.
a short review.
We just finished watching. It is called
ParaNorman.
Yeah, there you go.
It was out in movie theaters. Was it last year? 2 years ago?
Yeah. So this is
time's slipping by, man.
Fairly compared to the movies we usually review, or not review, but talk about. And yeah, I guess this won't necessarily be a review. It's more of a chat, I guess. Right?
What we thought was good about what we thought wasn't.
Yeah,
I think just a quick overview of what we liked and didn't like.
Yeah, because we don't exactly do reviews. We kind of do we recommend or say 13 Dwarves.
Things to watch, what aspects you might like of it.
But I enjoyed it.
And this was your
really
first
good.
time.
Yeah, I haven't seen it before. I'd give it 13 out of 13 Dwarves. Speaking of reviews,
I give it maybe 10 Dwarves.
Yeah,
there were some things I wasn't too big on.
I was quite satisfied with it. I like I guess it would be a spoiler to tell what ends up happening with the zombies, but I like what they do with the zombies. It
is a nice example of non-transmissible zombieism.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Although, yeah, it starts to get like, it's a little weird when people like automatically, whenever the dead come back to life, like it's funny that people in certain settings, they just react. They just say, "Oh, the dead come back, we're scared." Like I would think, sort of in the real world, if if like dead people were walking around, there is a bit of fear, but there's also just like confusion, I guess, or even a little bit of like, oh, well, maybe, hope, a little bit of like maybe somebody I know could come back, or.
Well, there's an interesting line to be used about that with zombies, in that if zombies come back and they're not automatically like, I will kill and eat all, human living flesh, then you run the risk of having them wind up be like representative of like, an ethnic group that suddenly come into town, and then all of a sudden the people that start attacking zombies are horrible bigots.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so you wind up, it's like, well, I guess everyone kind of likes shooting a zombie in the head, but boy, does that sound bad when they work as an allegory for an ethnic subtype, doesn't it? Yeah. Sounds like you're coming from some of the worst parts of the down south in America sort of thing. Boy, it sure is nice to shoot them in the head. I like it when I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you do have to be careful with zombies in that regard. If they're not horrible, undead abominations, then they work as allegories for this or that, and things start getting weird then. I wasn't quite happy with how the people automatically, it's like, oh boy, zombies, shoot them in the head, woo, yeah, and then they start like ganging up and start like, oh yeah, let's form a mob, and then it's like the horrible idiot ball. And okay, yeah. I don't have high hopes for anyone who joins into a mob, or decides to go with the mob mentality. I don't see myself doing that. I don't like to be the kind to follow in any mental diminished capacity.
Yeah, if it looks like a mob is forming, you sort of discreetly get out of the other way.
Well, I just don't like having any mental, capacity diminished, and mob mentality will do that for you. If you're part of a mob, you will get dumber just because you're following with a group sort of thing.
Well, it's not necessarily the individuals get dumber, but yes, things happen that sort of you wouldn't behave that way.
As a lot of people that are still going through the court system in Vancouver are showing, I'm not normally that kind of person, but yeah, I did smash and set on fire a couple cars. Sorry, I'm not usually that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that's going before the judges myself, but there's a lot of community service being sent out at least.
Yeah, I'm not really following them too closely. Every once in a while I hear a little story about somebody who got a little sentence. I don't think anybody's got like major time from being in a riot, but it goes on your permanent record, your criminal record. So,
but the thing with that is that it has been proven if you're in a large group of people acting, on a spur of the moment stuff, your intelligence is effectively diminished. You get dumber. You make dumber choices. Mm-hmm. You go along with stupider choices. Yeah. I mean, this is why I don't like drinking too much anymore. I just don't like being stupid. I find my own intelligence at the bare minimum of acceptable. If I catch myself being too dumb, I make sure I smarten up.
Yeah.
And so mobs are not my thing.
Well, yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I mean, what I'm saying though is once you're in a mob, it's like, well, then you kind of don't have you're part of it. So the thing, like, if you're saying my personality is not to be in a mob, well, that means you walk the other way, or you get out of there, right?
Well, basically, the only other option is to tell people quit being such a stupid mob, but then you're just gaining the attention of a mob who makes stupid choices, and that's probably not a good situation to be in.
Yeah. So well, maybe if you had a riot shield and like 40 other guys on your side, then you'd be with riot shields.
But that's the thing is, I always see the cops moving in, and it's like, well, that just means you're a better organized mob, really. It's just like...
Well, yeah, it's not always... I mean, we could talk about tactics, because that's in the news, and Ferguson and stuff in the States. And
bad tactics, definitely there.
Yeah. But I don't know if... Do we want to...
That's still too fresh.
But in this movie, there was a mob, and in some ways it's just cartoony. It's like, oh yeah, just take the trope and just throw it in there and say, the
there are people. Zombies in the historic town hall. Let's burn it and all the archival data that are there within.
Yeah.
So their idea to like torch stuff pretty quickly was like cartoonishly irresponsible.
Yeah, so it's one part is playing for laughs, one part is sort of satirical of like, oh, silly townsfolk, another part is just cartoony.
Like what's the difference between like a group of zombies and a mob of stupid people, right? And because there was a bit where they were trying to break in, and they were very much like zombies, or thing. Hands smashing in through there, trying to claw at people, and I think I can feel this clammy skin, yeah. And so, which was really the zombie mob.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that was, like I was saying, partly intentional by the people who made it. And partly just grabbing the tropes that already exist about...
Playing with them for fun.
Yeah. So there's that. I don't know. It was. Should we talk about like how it was made technically? Like it was a
stop motion animation thing
motion.
Where they used a 3D printer for the faces, so they were able to like switch out the faces a little bit easier than normal.
Yeah,
and they could print up a new face if anything gets too squished. So that's kind of nice.
It was definitely cool.
That said, with the 3D printing, they didn't have the same normal range. I've seen much smoother claymation motion. Like, this was no Ray Harryhausen work here. It was good and it was cartoonish and it had its own sense of style, but you could tell when they were switching faces as somebody was talking around there. It's like, that I had to switch to a new model there. Yeah. Whereas with Ray Harryhausen, if he's got a skeleton talking to you, well, that's smooth motion all the way.
Well, and in a way, that's an aesthetic choice because also, like, it is a bit cartoony. They could have not gone with quite as so exaggerated features.
I think they went with. I think that was the saving grace for the stupid ball that the mob had. Was they were a cartoonish mob.
Okay, yeah. And also, like, there were parts of the movie that were more animated, that were like cell animated, like the drawn cell.
Yes.
Did you see those parts? Did you catch them?
I did. Yeah.
I think it's
not
usually
the
flashbacks are usually like the cell animation.
Well, when like everything's peeling in the background around you, that's really, really difficult to do with stop motion. So that might have been CG even, I guess. But it definitely wasn't. They didn't do stop motion all the way, end all be all. So
yeah. I'm not sure exactly where, and that's fine. That's not knowing where the end of one technique ends and the beginning of the next technique.
But that's the thing. I like that they didn't stick to just the one technique. They said, okay, this does the job better, smoother, and they went here and there, and they tried to do a lot of things to make it better overall. There was not just one player. With respect to the techniques, it was an ensemble of abilities.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's normal for big movies, and that a lot of money is spent on them, and a lot of people work on it. So,
well, the trick is knowing where to go one way, where to go another. I mean, the reason that Jurassic Park has held up so well is they knew when to use the animatronic robots, and they knew when to do the CGI stuff. They realized if you're going to have a giant, like T-Rex head poking in, and then dilating when the light shines on it, you're probably not going to want that to be CGI because it's going to age. All the good close-up stuff like that, you are going to want to have, like a machine doing the motions for you. And so Steven Spielberg, he definitely knows which way to go on that sort of thing. T-Rex is chasing you, CGI as much as possible. When he's up close, that's when you go with your animatronics.
Yeah, cool. Because sculpture can be very detailed, so that's what you get with animatronics.
And it's at the same resolution as the people around it, so it's not like, oh boy, what the heck is going on with that guy? I mean, it looks like he's on a blue screen or a green screen, because that's all you're seeing is him there, and everything else is just animated to make it look like he's doing something. Which, don't get me wrong, I mean, that worked great for Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. But when it's like, you need dinosaurs going on there, it's something you're going to have to work up with to the same resolution as the people. Because the dinosaurs very much were every bit the character that the people were in that movie.
Oh, speaking of that, there's another thing that just popped into my head. I watched another film just actually earlier today even, so I've been taking in a lot of movies. The Book of Life.
Season. Yes,
I watched The Book of Life. And I won't explain too much about it, but it's a good movie, and it is very recent. It's in theaters now, so it's, again...
Not to be confused with The Meaning of Life by the Monty Python crew.
Right. The Book of Life is an animated, or I guess it's CGI. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but it's sort of, like the Toy Story, kind of told with toys. And it has Guillermo del Toro as the director, I believe.
He does a lot of good stuff.
And
very good stuff.
Most of the story is set in Mexico. It's sort of a Mexican Day of the Dead kind of theme, which fits for this time of year.
Very nice.
And so the point is, I just one quick point to make, hopefully, is that the characters age. Like, you know how in movies, like, sometimes they'll have, like, the young version of the hero, you know, in the first little bit of the movie, and then he grows up, and then he's the older version of the hero.
Yes.
And with actors, it's always, like, it always sticks in my head that always, like, oh, there's the, you know, I wonder how they match those actors, you know, and I know they
sometimes
do
they use their kids. I mean, I remember Jay and Silent Bob movies when they showed, you know, Jay and Silent Bob as babies. Silent Baby Bob was not, you know, actually a boy or anything. That was his daughter.
That was Kevin Smith's daughter?
Yeah, that was Harley Quinn Smith.
Oh, interesting.
So that why does it look so much? It's not just the outfit and the hat. It's actually genetics.
Yeah, I don't think Jason Mewes has any kids though.
Some people would say God forbid, but he seems like a nice guy these days. He makes for a good uncle, if nothing else.
Yeah, Uncle Jay. So in real life, not real life, real actors, like with human actors, human screen actors, that always pops into your head, like, oh, how did they match up, you know, the young version to the old version, and how well does it, and do I really believe it? But then when it's animated or CGI or stop motion or whatever, that totally doesn't even come into the, like, you don't think, oh, I wonder, although I did, obviously, at some point, it occurred to me, but it's like there wasn't that disconnect between, like, here's the young version and here's the grown-up version.
How can you tell this is the young version of the person? Does he look enough like the adult for it to work? Sometimes it does change. I mean, remember the reboot series with Enzo? He was a scrawny little kid, but when he grows up to be Matrix and all that, he is just a huge chunk of whatever digital equivalent of beef is. Yeah. Dude was muscles.
Yeah, and that happens in the Book of Life, is the kids they have, like, you know, kid-shaped faces, and then when they grow up, they have exaggerated adult, like, both have big square wooden chins, like they're...
Lantern jaw.
They look like, they're intended to look like wooden dolls with, like, very elaborate, like, little fabric patterns, and they, like, the characters are dolls. So, yeah, so they... The kids grow up into these different kind of dolls. Like, the kids are this kind of doll, and then their grown-up selves are this kind of doll.
G.I. Joe. No, not quite like that.
Yeah, so I was thinking that's an interesting, like, it's almost an advantage of CGI or animation, I guess, is that you don't, like, that doesn't occur to people, to the audience as they're watching it.
It is a lot smoother transition, and especially when you're dealing with more cartoonish stuff, it's a lot easier to see this character because you can tell because they've got this notable feature, and you don't have to find, like, a young kid with that feature and an adult with that feature. It's just like, no, you just keep animating them that way. So it does help out a lot.
Yeah, so the little point that turned into about 5 minutes. So anyways.
Do you recommend it, though?
Do I recommend what? Book of Life?
Yes.
I'm giving a lot of 13 out of 13s today, but yes, I very much recommend it. I liked it a lot, that Book of Life movie.
Excellent.
I do recommend seeing it in the theater. I ended up, I went with 4 people, so it was, you know, that's a little bit heavy on the pocketbook, but I think it was worth it.
If you can get them to pay their way, go with them.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if you're going with a bunch of kids, at least they're only kid rates. So there was that. I really enjoyed it, and I liked, you know, it was very colorful, very spectacular film.
Well, Guillermo del Toro knows how to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he's good with his monsters and his, like, mythology
and his lighting effects. I mean, heck, when he was doing, like the Once Upon a Time in Mexico and that whole series there, his light and shadow work there, it deserves to be watched. Don't just watch it for Antonio Banderas. Okay, he's worthwhile watching, but don't watch it just for him and the fights and, you know, and then the weaponry and all that stuff. Pay attention to the lights, the shadows, whenever the opportunity presents, and you'll notice it really does help set the mood, even if it's an unconscious thing most of the time that most people don't pick up. And Guillermo del Toro, he's seen enough. He knows the power that good light and shadow and color can do. So it wouldn't be surprising if I watched, The Book of Life, and I really did catch, like, his use of colors enhancing the scenes.
Yeah.
As much as any dialogue.
I think so. And he uses a lot of candles and stuff because it's that whole Mexican, like, it's a syncretistic religion, sort of a little bit of Catholicism in there, but a lot of also just sort of folk religion, and the deities are basically, well, they're not really deities, but they're sort of guardians of the underworld.
Well, you can use the use of candles to show the non-modern mentality. If they were like using, the British torch or, flashlight sort of thing, then it would indicate a much more modern time, much more modern mind. A candle evokes an older sense of what things were like, and so you help set the tone, the theme, and the mood that way.
Yeah, I think it's set in a very specific era. I'm not up on my Mexican history, but they kept on mentioning the Revolution. So,
that's the thing about Mexico. There's always the joke about Earth makes one revolution a year, except in Mexico, and who knows how many. And that's an old joke. It hasn't happened in a while.
I will, the other thing about candles, though, is there are still, you can go to places in Mexico where, not temples, but missions or
small churches and all that sort of thing.
They will have a table full of candles or whatever.
Oh yeah, and you light them for those, I want people to remember this, so you light the candles.
Yeah. And candles are good for that. What you were saying about light and shadows, especially
because they flicker and they move, and so should your shadows. And it's like then the shadow becomes like a person, and things are moving. It's a much more dynamic scene than if someone was just holding up, an iPhone with the light turned up.
Yeah. So. And I guess I'll say about, if I can continue talking about this. It also, at times, it gets very busy, and there's a lot of stuff on the screen. And, I guess I'm getting old or something or whatever, because it was in 3D, and it was all busy, and it was there's just way too much stuff. It was kind of like the Transformers effect, remember?
Oh. Was there shaky cam?
There wasn't so much shaky cam.
Okay, good.
But it was a little bit hard to follow everything that was happening.
Because that was the thing that got me out of the Transformers movies and kept me from watching any more than the first Bourne movie.
But I remember the Avengers, the battle with all the aliens in them was kind of like that for me too. It was too busy, too much going on.
Oh, but there was the one compilation scene showing everyone working together. It was a much more smooth show this, transition to that, and that's where I think a lot more things could be improved upon, is not by showing it all happening at once, but by doing the nice long scene, A leads to B, showing to C to D, and then maybe back to A, or however which way you want to go, but show it all together, but not all at once.
Yeah, and I think mostly they did, in the Book of Life, mostly they did pretty good with having, sort of specific, here's the character and he's doing something, and then there's the overview, which kind of helps. But yeah, the thing about the aesthetic of it is it's supposed to be sort of almost stereotypically Mexican. I mean, Guillermo del Toro is Mexican, or is he Spanish? I assume he's more familiar with sort of Mexican culture than I am. So
after Once Upon a Time in Mexico and related movies, I don't see how you couldn't be, you'd have to check things up and double check. Otherwise, you are just going to get panned so hard in Mexico.
I don't know, because it seemed to me, it felt like there were some real stereotypes in there. But I was like, well, I guess the directors are Mexican, so maybe he can get away with some of these. So I don't know how much, because sometimes you hear what is this, sombrero and the sleepy Mexican, and
I always wanted to like that guy, Mario. I mean, he seems like this guy's got it made. This guy's able to take a nap in the afternoon. This is an adult who's just out and about doing whatever he wants. He's taking a nap, man. Toss a sombrero down over his eyes and just chill out. This guy knows something about life that I think everyone else could pick up a lesson on, man.
Oh, I don't think there were very many siestas in that movie. It was very action oriented, that movie. So
they had a siesta afterwards. They all chilled out.
Yeah, you have to siesta after. But yeah, it was very, and the aesthetic of it was sort of drawn from that Day of the Dead, very almost Baroque, a lot of just tons of intricate both face paint and fabric work on their costumes, and the candles, tons of candles.
So you're hoping somebody gets an award for digital fashion design.
Well, I mean, I don't care about awards. I just liked it. So,
well, if it was likable enough that you noticed it, it should be an award, at least nomination worthy.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if I should say I liked it, because I enjoyed it. It, like I was saying, it was a little bit weird
busy
at times, but I think that sort of added to the odd feeling of the show too. That it's like felt like it was in a different place because it was so busy. And
well, just one thing I noticed an awful lot is they'll take, here's a faraway exotic location, and then people are making like the same sort of jokes, like a Flintstone style sort of thing. And it's like, well, you went through all the trouble to establish a different place. Why did you go back? Why is this like, it's like people who go camping but take everything with them? And it's like, well, then why even bother camping? Like, why go to this exotic location if you're just going to make the jokes that like you could have made in like downtown New York City? And so I think in that case it worked out better that he didn't go with the same. Well, I'll call them Flintstone liners. In that it's like a joke about how everything's like North American life.
Yeah, I don't remember if there were anything like that. Was anything like that? I mean, there was probably a few references, like to sort of American culture, and I don't know.
Well, you don't have to exclude it entirely, but it doesn't have to be like, oh, welcome to Mexico. Everything's like America, but with a Spanish accent.
Yeah, I know for certain the movie will be in Spanish, and I wonder if the director put as much the same amount of effort. Sometimes they just like dub it over in another language, right?
Well, that's the interesting thing with stuff like CGI. You could actually have the lips move properly for the different languages.
Yeah, I was thinking
if it's deemed like worthwhile enough to do the extra work.
And I mean, his other films have been filmed in Spanish and then dubbed into English, like Pan's Labyrinth was.
Oh yes. I don't even think that was dubbed. When I saw it was subtitled.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, okay. So I imagine the Spanish version probably looks just like
as seamless and smooth and
like to them it's like, oh yeah, no, that's just Tuesday. Or I guess it's not, because it is the Day of the Dead. It's very festive.
That totally happened to me once. I'm totally relating to that, man.
I'm trying to imagine if there's an equivalent of like the not quintessential, but a Canadian film, like what that would look like.
Well, I mean, Kevin Smith is filming, Yoga Hosers, so maybe we'll find out.
What's the one with John Candy and Canada? I think it has Canada.
Oh, that would be the one with Rhea Perlman, where they Canadian Bacon.
Yeah, that's the one, Canadian Bacon. I wonder if I would like to see a more sort of Canadian themed movies, because this one felt very Mexican themed. So I'm like, well, why couldn't there be a Canadian themed?
And that's what Yoga Hosers is all about. Come on, man.
Yeah, and we have our stereotypes. We also have our
Well, there's also Strange Brew, the Bob and Doug McKenzie movie.
Yeah, we have our Canadian tribute movies. And we have a few, some sort of survival Canadian movie. That seems to be like a genre.
To be fair, I mean, as a people, we are very concentrated in certain areas, and then it's like, oh, hey, look, huge, vast swaths of wilderness that people don't see for sometimes years at a time.
Yeah.
So it's like you get lost in there, and, I mean, they're not even going to see the wreckage for 5 years. And that happens here on the island, too. It's like, oh, hey, we found the wreckage of the plane that went down, back in 2007. It was right here on the side of the mountain. Why didn't anyone see it before? It's so far out of the way, no one sees this side of the mountain for 7 years. And it's like, whoa.
I remember we used to go up to Tofino, Ucluelet, which is on Vancouver Island, on the west coast of the island.
West Coast, yo!
Which is pretty far away from most stuff, but it's a little tourist kind of area, so a lot.
You want good surfing? Go to Tofino. They've got some of the best surfing in all of Canada. You have to go all the way down to California to meet anything that'll approach it.
But we used to go there every once in a while. My parents have some friends. I think they still live there, possibly, or they had kids, and those kids are grown up now, so they're in various places. But we used to do, every time we went out there, we used to do a hike that was like a few hours. I can't remember. Like for kids, I guess. For us,
forever. When it's a kid.
But there was an old bomber that had crashed. I don't know if it was during the war or after. I think it was shortly after World War II. Possibly even into the 60s, but I think it was earlier than that. But it was a bomber, and it had crashed there, and there was no way to get it out. They may have removed some of the more important stuff.
Get rid of the fuel tanks, take those bombs back to the base, sort of thing.
Yeah. But yeah, basically you can. It's like an attraction. You hike out there. There's no road. There's just. I mean, I guess they've worn a hiking trail basically.
Hey, you want to go see the old bomber? Let's go.
But yeah, it's like you can go out there. You can have a picnic on the old World.
Oh, you
War
don't need to
II
go that
plane.
far out though. Too. I remember they were doing some work on the Malahat highway that leads. For those who don't know, it's the highway that goes through a mountain region on the island that takes you from the greater Victoria area up to Nanaimo. Two decent-sized cities, and it allows you not to have to pay like an arm and a leg to go on our ferry to go from A to B there. But they were doing some upgrading on there a couple of years back, and they found a bazooka, like a loaded bazooka. How it got there, no one knows. Why it was taken, from the Canadian Armory and never realized, hey, you guys are missing a bazooka, like when they're doing inventory. They found the file and then, oh, hey, yeah, so that's where it went. But it'd be missing for like 20 years, sort of thing. And thank goodness the chemical stuff in the bazooka had degraded so that it was non-combat worthy or anything like that.
Wow.
Trying to use it, you'd blow yourself up. But there was, for 2 decades, on the side of a busy highway in Canada, a bazooka just waiting to be found.
Wow.
That no one saw because that's the nature of Canada. There's these weird swaths of land that nobody sees.
I like the fact that you can put it in a role playing game and suddenly now that's believable. Like you could put it, or a video game, if you say, oh yeah, your character finds a bazooka.
So
like just random table.
It's a little dilapidated, but if you got the right skill checks to fix it up, you might have it be worthy. So I'm going to put a pin in this, Josh. So if we ever get the opportunity, I am going to create a Sasquatch armed with a bazooka.
Bazooka Sasquatch.
Because who sees the sights that no man sees for years at a time? The Sasquatch sees. The Sasquatch knows where all the bazookas are out in the woods.
Yeah, that would sell a comic book right there. Just have the title be Sasquatch Bazooka.
Oh no, but he
or Bazooka Sasquatch.
He's cobbled together like a hot rod roadster made out of like bomber pieces too.
Sure, yeah.
So there you go. He's the various plane wrecks. He's stolen stuff, gotten the tanks for it, and now he's got himself his own vehicle. Admit it. If you had artistic skills, you would start sketching this right now.
Well, I might do that when I get home after the podcast.
And this is why I need to win the lottery, so that I can send out various commissions of this sort of stuff to all the people, in DeviantArt and Elfwood and all those places, so that for the world I will share it with them. And here's a wonderful image of a Sasquatch wielding a bazooka on the back of a homemade off-road vehicle as he goes rocketing through the woods of beautiful British Columbia.
Okay.
Oh,
cool.
If only.
So did we finish talking about what the movie was?
It was going to be ParaNorman we were talking about. We got off on a few other ones. I really did like the ending and the message it sent. That, sometimes life dumps on you.
Are we spoiling the ending?
Not really. The message I got from it is that, life will dump on you from time to time, but it's no good really hating on the people and the circumstances that dump it upon you, because what good does that do?
Yeah, well, now that you put it that way, I think that's reasonable, but I like movies where you can fight back. Because it's very hard. I mean, yes, there's movies where it's like, you have to learn to accept and forgive, and yes, bad things happen, and you there's a strength in just being able to carry on and not necessarily, not turn to evil because of it or something. But I also like movies where it's like, you can become a hero. Well, and the kid did become a hero in a little way because he accomplished something. So he
got the stupid mob to realize they were being a stupid mob, and that counts for points. Yeah.
So I like the idea of being able to somehow fight back or somehow take action, rather than just sort of letting it go.
Well, maybe it's just my perspective. I mean, I have customers that compliment me on my awesome service and all that, and I say, well, if getting out of work early could be accomplished by giving bad service, I probably would. But the only thing doing bad service would do at work was make sure I don't get to come back ever again. So, why bother with bad customer service? And so, in which case, maybe that's the lesson I see. It's the lesson I already know. Is you can't let it hit you. You got to keep being good no matter how bad things get.
Yeah, because I guess we're talking about sort of the girl that the town,
the witch,
turned against.
Yeah,
that they accused her of being a witch. I guess she was kind of witchy, like in by some definition.
She had supernatural powers. That defaults you to witchery in that era.
I guess so, yeah. And then so it was like, oh, can she forgive them? And yes.
To be fair, to her side and her negative opinions on the whole thing, from what I heard in the flashbacks that Norman was seeing there, she was sentenced to be hanged by the neck until dead, and she was like a young girl. That's pretty dickish. You have, I think, at least a right to be angry at these people who hang you for like powers beyond your control and not listening to you.
I think, and that's why I have a little bit of that streak in me that's like, no, like she's right to fight back and like hurt them back. But of course, what does that accomplish? Like,
but that's the thing is they never show what happens to the spirits when they dissolve at the end and go off into whatever the afterlife is. But I like to believe that the founding fathers and all that, the people that were the zombies, that they find peace. No, they don't. They still sentenced an innocent young girl to hang by the neck until dead. So I'm pretty certain they go to hell.
Yeah, possibly.
It would have been interesting to have seen at least one of them trying to keep things from ever reaching a conclusion, because continual life as undead still beats eternal torment in hell.
That might be true.
That would have been an interesting quirk. One of them winds up becoming doing the whole Judas routine and tries to keep things from hitting any sort of positive conclusion, because still beats hell.
Yeah, well, you were mentioning too that sort of like I don't know, actually.
At the beginning scene, it shows Norman, walking around talking to people that aren't there, and it reveals, oh my goodness, there are ghosts everywhere.
Yeah, and you were saying that might be hell.
That's pretty hellish. I mean, like, okay, you are dead. Now you get to hang out where you hung out in life, except nobody can see and hear you.
Yeah, except other dead people.
Well, yeah, but...
Or could they? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But it's like what are they going to do? Like, you're there and you're like unable to do anything. There's no job for them to go to. Doesn't seem to be much of an ability for almost any of them to actually impact the surrounding amongst them. There was one ghost who managed to do some damage to a toilet stall, but the others just seem to exist without being able to do anything. So it's this weird situation of like, okay, you're dead, but you're still, on Earth. What now?
Yeah, well, and like they were saying, though, is that each ghost has its own reason for sticking around, its own, like, purpose.
Yeah, it's shown fairly early that Norman's dead grandmother is still there because she promised to always, help and support him, be by his side, although she doesn't seem to ever leave the house. When things are going bad and people are torching the, a historic town hall, I noticed a distinct lack of grandmother to protect anyone.
That's true.
So, I don't know. There might have been something else going on there.
Well, I think ghosts operate according to some strange rules, but I feel like sometimes it kind of makes sense. Like, okay, so Grandma, like, she saw her duty, like, while she was living, she saw her duty as taking care of her grandson. And
she's got a granddaughter, but the granddaughter's like popular and cheerleader stuff. This Norman kid, doesn't really have any friends, and he's got some weird abilities going on, so he needs some extra protection. That's why she's there for him.
Yeah. But at the point where she dies and she becomes a ghost, her focus is on, because he's mostly at home. Like, he isn't out having adventures. He's not that hero. He's not, the hero with the granny sidekick. He's a kid at home, and Grandma's taking care of him at home. So I figure that kind of makes sense for the Grandma's, like, ghostly mission, or, the ghostly, like, what anchors her to the mortal realm, like, not being able to quite escape the bonds of it, is that she has that one particular, like, I am in this space doing this activity for this person, and it can't really change. Like, if the boy grows up, he doesn't bring Grandma with him. She stays in that place, and I suppose, like, if he just disappeared one day, she would just always be a ghost there, waiting for him to come back or something.
That sounds incredibly sad.
Yeah.
And very unfulfilling. I do not want to believe in a cosmos where that is a thing that can happen.
Well, I mean, a lot of bad things happen in our cosmos without ghosts, but I suppose at least people, that sounds horrible.
At least there's an ending to it. There may not, I mean, how's it go in The Watchmen? Is it never truly ends, sort of thing, is this line. It's like, how you can see the future, John, as he says to the glowing blue man who perceives through time, it's like, how does it end? And he says, you said yourself, it never ends. Sort of thing. And that's true in the grand sense. The story never ends, but the players only get a limited time on the field, sort of thing.
Yeah, it ends for them.
For better or for worse, it comes to an end for everyone.
Yeah.
And so in which case, I think that's the best thing possible. I mean, as much as living forever sounds awesome, it would really kind of suck after the heat death of the universe.
Yeah.
Long after, like, what is humanity, goes and progresses so far beyond, you are the equivalent of, like, a house pet to them. Some weird archaic thing that belongs in a museum, a relic of what humanity once was. So, that's pretty harsh. So, like, by the laws of the cosmos, at least, you get to die and things change. Like, you don't like the old people that are ruining the world and putting in all these horrible laws. At least they'll die one day. That those people that are suffering, and living in eternal torment, at least they can die someday. Maybe sooner if a euthanasia law ever gets passed, but the pain won't be forever. The horrible natures of people won't be forever. It changes, and at least death comes for everyone. Because, imagine if like they do this in sci-fi occasionally, like what if you could buy more time on this mortal world? Yeah. And then, in which case, congratulations, life itself favors the rich. The poor die early, and and without making any impact upon the world. The rich live forever.
Yeah, that happens.
And that is that's one of the things I don't like about Dungeons and Dragons is that like, oh no, disease has swept through the land. You want to cure disease? Well, that's a 3rd level spell cast by 5th level cleric. So if you got the cash to afford it, disease doesn't hold on to you anymore. You are not subject to the great equalizer of sickness.
Yeah, that's true. And it's like 3rd level spells like 150 gold or something like that.
That's that's more than people will make in a good year.
Yeah, like some peasants will never see that much in their lifetime because
they might generate that much throughout the course.
Yeah, over the course.
They will never get that much accumulated.
Yeah, exactly. They would never see it in one place.
And, how good is this cleric that's, wait until you have 150 gold before you cast the spell? That's the equivalent of, like, $1,500.
Well,
that's like you cast that spell 4 times, you can afford to buy a new car. Not a great car, but it's still a fairly new car.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the economy on that works. I guess it depends on the campaign, too, a little bit. Depends how common the clerics are. Like
that is one of the reasons I do like 5th edition, is a spellcasting cleric is seen as a particularity. Not every church is going to have one. They are a very close figure to their own deity in some way and form. They have a much more unique correlation than the people who are preaching every week to the congregation.
It would be interesting if, D&D is sort of set in an era in which sort of plague can be a major thing. So it'd be interesting if just the whole idea with D&D was that there was always constantly a plague, and the clerics, the reason they're not healing more is because they have to cast it every single day. Like, there's more plague victims because they can't figure out how to do sanitation. But, hey, the clerics don't care because they have a magic for it.
And well, here's the fun thing is that the rich people would get it first because they're the ones who donate to the church properly and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it winds up being that, once again, the rich wind up becoming, immune to the natural factors of life. But you also run the whole other side. It's like, the god of disease has his own clerics. So you can cure disease as much as you want. They just keep casting inflict.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, hey, sick old person, here's a copper. Inflict. There you go. And then you walk off and the guy's coughing up lungs.
I guess the one consolation with rich people is like sort of the Game of Thrones idea in that once you get to the top there, it's a constant struggle. And yes, there's resurrection, and if someone poisoned you, well, you have a
I do like what they
true
do in
resurrection, so.
Girl Genius, though. You can come back. They can revivify your body if your brain's still good. I mean, it doesn't matter what happens to the rest of your body. They can regenerate the rest of it, and you can pop back out. Mm-hmm. But you no longer are in the line of succession. If you are a king and you are killed, you can come back, but you're not king anymore. The next in line takes over. You have to bow out. So saith the noble families that no longer have enough power to inflict such a law upon reality.
Right.
At the start of the whole thing, the Baron von Klaus, he's come back from the dead, so he should not be, the Grand Ruler. But you know what? He has enough force of arms. You do as he says. So this rule does not apply to him because he's bigger than that. But
I mean,
the concept that to be up in this high power world where you have the money, you have to keep earning it. You can't just freeload off the backs of the working class. It does put a nice little balm on that wound, I will say. I do like it better described in the Old World of Darkness series. On that, with vampires, is you want to be up there and you want to be playing in the stuff. You are eventually going to feel like you are all alone, and you're just going to scream and scream and scream. But the second you show any weakness, they will get you. They will stake you. They will suck your blood. They will kill you in ways that normal people cannot do. It doesn't get any better. It only gets worse. I guess it's also like a thing that they used to say about video games. Video games are like life. The old video games. There's no ending. No positive. Yay, achievement ending. Things just go faster and faster and get harder and harder until you die.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, which is about the truth, because I played some of the old Atari games enough to know that no, there is no positive ending. You don't rescue the princess from Donkey Kong properly. You just go to the next map and do it again, and they're moving faster, and the barrels are on flames, and there's more broken stuff, and you're not moving quick enough because you got bad reflexes, and the horrible joystick controls of its era mean you will die. And so, at least there's that to comfort you. For better or worse, it's not going to go on forever. And that's the sad thing about the ParaNorman was apparently that no, that's not how it works. You can have something, that you need to get done, but there is no way to make sure it happens. All these ghosts Norman's seeing there, for the ghost of the animals and the ghost of the people, yeah, sure, they have things that they need to get done, things that need to reach conclusion for them to go on, but there is no way for them to do anything on the mortal plane, it seems.
Yeah, they can't. That happens in a lot of ghost stories in that they require mortals to intervene.
And that's a horrible thing. That's just an absolutely okay, so now we got to wait until someone can notice us, and then we got to get them to do our work for us. That works in an RPG where there's a quest-based thing. I would not mind seeing a zone in the World of Warcraft where what you're doing is helping keep the dead go to rest by doing daily quests to put them down.
Yeah. Well, that happens in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, on occasion, but it would be nice to have it as a nice theme for a particular zone.
Yeah.
Because that way, it works along those lines. It's I cannot do this, you have to do it for me. And you get, a soul coin to redeem for wonderful weapons that wind up getting upgraded as soon as you go into raiding content.
Oh, I like in World of Warcraft too is that you pass by a town and you see the yellow exclamation point over a villager so many times, and you're like, I'll do it later. And you pass by the same town again later.
It's gone kind of gray. I've out-leveled it.
Gray. I'll do it later. And then you finally, you click on it. It's like, oh, I need you to find my long-lost son within the next 5 minutes. And it's like,
well, geez, if I had started this, 2 months ago, I could have just walked the entire distance.
So.
Yeah, it is a little weird and artificial in that case.
But I guess it's games for you.
But that's the thing is, though, with this whole ghostly thing that you need a living mortal to do the stuff for you, at least it gives an explanation for why you're doing all these darn quests for other people. You go find your own dang kid, buddy. You've been waiting here for months. I've seen you. Why didn't you go find your own kid? You are going to reward me with some decent gear, one of which happens to be a weapon. You equip your own weapon, and you go save the day. I'm tired of being the hero for everyone, everywhere.
I wonder, maybe World of Warcraft, the entire world is just ghosts repeating their lives over and over and over again.
It does explain the respawn pattern, I'll give it that. Wouldn't that be the interesting twist? It's like, oh no, everything I know has been destroyed. You know, the evil elder gods did destroy it. You're just ghosts and you don't even know. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, I like it.
If they ever have to pull the plug quick, that's going to be an incredible nice twist answer.
Oh boy, yeah.
Hopefully nobody from Blizzard is actually paying attention to us right now, because I don't want to give them that quick, cheap answer. I want to see what answer they come up with.
Oh yeah, okay.
If it ever needs. I don't think they'll just do a quick wrap-up. I think they'll do a proper, the final expansion, and then everyone will start playing again. They'll make a lot of cash. Give it a proper conclusion, and be done. And then comes along World of Warcraft 2. Da-da-da-da.
2. Blizzard they are working on another. Have they mentioned what there's
Titan?
They scrapped it and
they scrapped it and had to restart again.
But they're still working on something.
Yeah, well, that's what they do from time to time. I mean, they were working on Ghost for a couple of years, and then they decided, no, this isn't going to be up to the quality. They had an entire one for, what happens to Thrall, as he gets his freedom and starts, the new Horde. Mm-hmm. And they said, you know what, it's really not the sort of thing that people would like, and we don't believe it's at the proper quality, so they chucked the whole darn thing.
Huh.
So say what you want about, oh no, since Activision bought them out, it just hasn't been the same quality. No, they're still making sure if they don't think the game is going to be good, they at least cut ties eventually.
Huh? Sure, I guess so, yeah.
That said, I do miss the whole Nova thing with the Ghost Protocol stuff that they were working with, and it would have been nice to have seen a much more personal scale level for the StarCraft, as opposed to just units on a terrain map.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently those Ultralisks are not just that big, they are freaking huge.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice to have seen that sort of proper disparity of size and all that.
Well, I mean, it's funny, the Marines, what are they, Space Marines? Or yeah.
You can't call them Space Marines, because I set them way too close to the original source with the 40K universe.
Okay, because they're one of the smallest units on the screen, and then
person in body armor, yeah.
Yeah, and then when they do the the cinematics, it's these are these big tough guys, huge guys.
Hulking exoskeletal suits. You need to
armor.
sew on effectively, with rivets and seam, cutting up in there, and oh my goodness.
Really huge guys, and then on screen they're just little tiny. They're the smallest unit.
Well, it has to represent something sort of thing going on there, so. Yeah, the SCV that cuts down the resources and moves everything around, that's supposed to be bigger than the Marines.
Yeah.
And yet, no, they're about the same sort of size, take up the same sort of space. It's a game mechanic principle, effectively. Yeah. And I'm okay with that. But it would have been nice to have seen along with a more cinematic level of things. So.
Yeah.
Well, maybe someday they'll have a movie.
I want to take a moment to mention our social media. If you want to get in contact with us, if you're enjoying this show and you have came up with a crazy idea you just have to share and you have no other outlet.
If there was something we missed in ParaNorman that completely helps out the horrible afterlives of all these ghost people, I want to hear about it. I would like to know I missed this. It's not this horrible limbo hell afterlife these people are stuck in.
So if you have our email address, or you will in a second, because it is thesimulationist@gmail.com. That's thesimulationist.
All one word, no underscores.
Yeah, and if you've already found this, you probably don't need help spelling it, because you can read it wherever you happen to find this video.
Google the Simulat, and it'll auto-fill in the rest for us. We're that good so far.
Awesome. And what else? Oh, Facebook.com/thesimulationist.
We're always paying attention on Facebook. That's a good way to get a hold of us.
Yeah. And there's little boxes where you can comment on the show's page. And YouTube has a little comment box. The same show that goes up on iTunes also goes up on YouTube. Speaking of iTunes has a little box for reviews. And aside from all of that, if you enjoy the show, maybe you want to just tell a real-life friend. If you have any.
Well, you can tell her, like an online friend, too. I mean, I've got friends I've never seen in real life. I consider them real friends, but just not, real life yet. Yeah. Someday I might be able to go over to Iceland and see them. Maybe.
Cool. If there's someone out there who's listening and I don't have any friends I can share, just share it with us, and then that counts as your share.
Yeah.
So, send us email, and all that stuff. Cool. And so we should get back to our discussion.
Now for what, the ParaNorman or the Horrible Afterlife?
I guess we're still talking about that. I don't think we have time for another brand new horror.
Okay. I just want to make sure whether we were talking on the topic of ParaNorman or whether we were at our tangent still.
Oh yeah. Well, what was our tangent?
One of the things I did like is the low amount of big name actors they had in the series. The biggest one was John Goodman. He wasn't a big character in there. I mean, I think by the end of Act 1, he was out of the scene. He was done. He wasn't coming back, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Alex Borstein, you might know her as the voice of Lois. She's done some Mad TV stuff, for many, many years there. So she's a decent name. They didn't get Ben Affleck, but they did have his brother Casey Affleck in there. I don't consider him to be the biggest name, but at least he's a recognizable name.
He shares a name with a big name. Okay.
Well, I mean, he's done his own work. He's doing some good stuff. But they didn't have, so and so from TV, the big name actor of the big, teen kids series right now is going to be the voice actor. They went with someone I'll call relatively unknown. I'm sure they're doing good work, but it's not the big name AAA draw. They weren't trying to bring people in with the voice actors. They weren't trying to do name dropping that way. They said, effectively, we're going to make this rest on the quality of the work, and we want to get the best voice actors, even if they're not the big name people that everyone heard of, and gets people just watching anything they do.
Okay, cool.
So I did like that. That shows a little bit of confidence, if nothing else, in what they've got. This plot's good enough. We're not going to need to, we have to get this. This is kind of double our budget, but we need this voice actor. We need Phil Lamar. We need the big voice actresses in the industry to make this happen. So I do like that they had enough courage in their own work to say we can do this with the small name people. Plus they work cheaper,
Cool.
So I found that to be. I don't think that was a make or break either way. It's I don't recognize any voices. I did like what it showed to me that way. And that's just kind of how I operate.
Sure. Yeah. And for me, I didn't even notice. I mean, at some point I figured out that one character was John Goodman. But
yeah, you recognized his voice. You were asking who he was, and I know that was John Goodman doing that. But
that's all. That's the only one I knew.
There have been some movies where the biggest draw was the actor, not the plot, not the character, but the actor. And I like that they didn't decide, well, I don't know if we're going to get enough people in on this. They got that Frankenweenie movie coming out around the same time. Maybe we need some big voice actors to really pull in and make sure they're not going to the darn you Tim Burton and your Frankenweenie stuff. So I like that they had their own. They said, "Hey, we're good enough. We can do this. We don't need that. We got quality going on our side here."
Yeah. Okay.
So that, of course, that's just me.
Sure.
In the end, though, I have to say, I didn't like how things broke down. It was, he can see the dead, and then, he's the only one, so he seems like a crazy person, just trying to do something. Uh-huh. And, maybe it could have been him being crazy, thinking he's seeing dead people, and he's really just weird. But then the zombies come up, and that's the sort of thing. And then things got really, supernatural and power stuff, and so it stopped being such a subtle display of what powers are, and it became very objective, where, and now here's a little girl made out of electricity.
Yeah, I think that's a common track in movies, to have start out sort of subtle and sort of towards the end it's like, whoa, blow you away with supernatural lightning and everything.
But the thing that gets me is that if this supernatural world exists, why does everybody not disbelieve it? I mean, dude, you can prove it exists here. There's a girl made out of electricity. This is not the only time this could have happened throughout human history. Where the objective proof that shows this sort of stuff happening.
I don't know, because they do the dad and the sister are both sort of skeptical. The sister's like, prove it, and like, prove
Everybody's
it.
pretty skeptical. I mean, that's why the poor Norman gets no friends. People scribbling freak on his locker and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think part of that is denial. Like, part of it is just cartoony. Like, oh, people are so silly. They're one day they believe things, the next day they don't.
I do recall a nice issue of Plastic Man, where he goes to like a house or thing, and oh no, haunted by vampires, but he doesn't believe in vampires, and he explicitly states vampires don't exist, despite the fact that I, as a member of the Justice League, just helped destroy a huge, elite, powerful covenant of them. And so it shows that, okay, in the comics at least, it's like, oh yeah, like Batman, like doesn't believe in supernatural, and then comes like a story arc where supernatural happens. Oh no, he's totally seen it, and then, don't believe in supernatural, anything like that, and it goes back to the status quo. Despite the fact, dude, you know Zatanna. You have, you can speed dial a magic user. You can probably speed dial a couple of them. You're Batman. You got the Justice League, Rolodex going on there.
Yeah.
And so, like, the whole premise of, like, I don't believe the supernatural exists seems rather weird in a world where you can have a girl made out of electricity. Even if it's, like, psychic electricity? I mean, that's pretty... that's kind of
Yeah,
awesome.
well, nobody thought to go... Like, I don't think they even mentioned where they ultimately found her.
Well, that's the thing, though. Is if this is something that can happen, it is unlikely that this is the only time it has ever happened. In an existence where this is possible, you should have a situation whereby people will believe because there is enough evidence to form a cohesive body of logical thought as to how this stuff operates.
Well, I wonder...
Tobin's spirit guide or something, if you will.
It's hard to say because... I wonder if in nature there are things that only happen once, like sort of freak events, not supernatural, just like...
I mean, you could make an argument about like the hybridization of insects. There are an estimated like million species of hybridized insects that just were like, okay, two random insects were horny and mated, and hey, now you've got like the bumble wasp or something. It happens, but if it can happen once, it will happen again. Is the theme of nature?
Yeah, sure.
Like right now, we are like, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that like mules are so widespread, we would have true breeding mules. Because they say there are sterile species like hybridization, from like donkeys and horses. You get the mule, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, it is very, very unlikely, 1 in millions of odds, that you will encounter fertility in the species. But there have been fertile males, there have been fertile females. You will get a true breeding fertile species of mules eventually.
How will you do that? What do you, like if you left them in nature?
Well, you make sure their numbers are concentrated. They seem to be spread out, like only bred for whenever they're needed, sort of thing.
Okay. Well, yeah, sure.
So they wind up, like only popping up as needed. They're not something that, I just kind of left the two of them in the field together. I guess now we got some mules coming up. Whoops. No, they tend to only crossbreed them for the purpose of a role. And with the rise of ATV and tractors and all that, I guess we don't need so many mules, so their numbers have declined.
All right. Okay.
But that's the thing with nature. It's like, oh, hey, these two plant species have hybridized together, and now we have like oh my goodness, look at the amount of chromosomes in this plant. It happens once, it'll happen again, it will keep on happening. And fun stuff with plants is auto-fertilization, so if it happens once, it will breed out on itself.
Well, let me ask you, how many weird things happened, like, sort of to initiate the chain of events in the movie? Like, was it just the one thing? Was it because of the girl's powers that the dead walked and the that sort of stuff happened?
The zombies came up. It looked like because of the hand of the witch, sort of thing. I mean, her ghostly hands, boof, hit the dirt, and all of a sudden, zombie, hands coming up.
So that stuff was sort of based on her. Although the whole the rest of the ghosts in the town didn't seem.
Who seemed to get pretty darn scarce after the first act when everything was going down and people are panicking and stupid ball is getting thrown around with the mob there. I didn't notice any, gangster with, this concrete shoes. I didn't notice any, half dead, like two half dog pieces running down the street. I didn't notice any, ghost parachutist in the tree. Yeah. They all seem to just, they're shown once and then bam. Okay, yeah, proof that everyone else is gone now. Where did these ghosts actually run away when things got weird?
I doubt it, because they would have to have, like we talked about, the ghost's motivation and what they do. They do their one thing. And
well, the hippie ghost seemed rather at peace with his own self. He was trying to hit Zen or something. I don't know. Maybe that was his goal, to actually hit Nirvana. But
I wouldn't. That's interesting. Yeah, when you point that out, because you'd think if he was truly at peace, like
he was doing the lotus position, floating in the air. Maybe he can't hit Nirvana because he thinks how awesome it is that he can actually float in the air while doing the lotus position. He has to overcome that last sense of ego before he can finally go on.
Yeah, that's probably it. So I guess like that world has just ghosts are anywhere. Like that's sort of.
And well, the weird thing is that there are animals too. Ghosts are thing. Yeah. Like, there's a ghost dog thing going on there. When a fly got squished, I didn't see a ghost come out of there. So there's some sort of weird level of as to like where you can get a ghost from and where you can't.
Well, maybe it just wasn't on screen though. That could have, or maybe it was just too small to see. Or something.
You're able to see the big guy died, voiced by John Goodman. He dies, and the spirit automatically is coming up out.
Yeah.
The fly got squished and all that. Nothing came out of there. So apparently,
nothing visible.
Well. Like I'd assume they'd have shown something like in Norman view.
I wouldn't say necessarily they would. They might, but
it does set up a bad precedent that if a fly dies, a ghost of a fly comes out, sort of thing. If it hadn't touched enough dung yet, there would have been a lot of ghost flies.
I mean, I suppose the other explanation though is that the fly has very little unfinished business to do. So
it hasn't touched enough dung and then food.
A ghost fly would be very uncommon, whereas a ghost dog maybe didn't catch a stick that it was thrown or something.
Or it's just like I didn't have enough fun time, protecting my owner and all that sort of thing. Or I want to see my owner grow up, sort of thing. So it might be that sort of issue.
Yeah, that's probably what that is. So yeah, we've gone a little over time. I guess we'll wrap it up on the thoughts on the movie.
The world of ParaNorman is a hellish, crazy world that doesn't hold up to high scrutiny.
Oh my. It's a cartoon, okay?
Well, it's a stop-motion animation cartoon.
Sure.
But the dead walk among us, unable to conclude their life's activities and seemingly without any ability to enact anything upon this world in order to get those things done. All they can do is sit and watch and hope it gets done by sheer accident or random happenstance, unless a special powered person comes by who is willing to do this work for them.
Yep, it's a bleak world. Hey,
but if you're full of enough hate, you can become an electrical person and really affect the world around you.
It's a good world to be a hero type in though, because there's lots of stuff to do, lots of quests to do.
Yeah, but I don't think the ghosts reward you with anything. And as I've learned from MMOs, heroes are only heroes because they get the fat loot or something to disenchant with later.
Well, if you became a hero though, like if this kid, like we don't know what happens after the end of the movie.
He watches a horror movie.
If he becomes a like a ghost hunter or something, crisscrossing the country, he could just earn money from the the townsfolk where they're like, oh, our house is haunted, will you help us? And like, oh yeah, I'll get rid of the ghost. It's just a small fee. And he can.
But then he winds up. I mean, he might be a hero, but he'll be constantly plagued by, oh yeah, you're taking advantage of people in a bad situation. You horrible person, you.
And then he becomes the Ghostbusters. And he franchises and.
Well, that's the thing about the Ghostbusters is they were pure science and technology. There was no mediums amongst them, even though they did acknowledge the presence and existence, and abilities thereof.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the next Ghostbusters movie, but maybe they'll have, like, one character might be a little more, like, sort of an adept or a supernatural.
Well, they did have, in the original movie, Ray had the goggles on that allowed him to see ecto stuff. And if they have someone who's psychically sensitive, that would definitely help in how they were able to pioneer the technology.
Yep.
And it could definitely, help out, with, like, oh, yes, I can see him. No, you missed. It was to the left. Sort of thing until listen. If we want to bust these invisible ghosts, you either got to make them visible or get me goggles that let me see like you do. So, of course, can you imagine trying to work blind like an invisible poltergeist and all you have is the PKE meter to try and figure out which direction it's all in?
Yeah, that'd be tough.
That would be annoying. But fortunately, the ghosts became visible due to the high amount of PKE energy sent about by Ivo Shandor and the arrival of Gozer. That is a world I can definitely dig my teeth into, because things seem to end, and yes, you can, nuke a god. Or pseudo-god, or whatever the heck Gozer was.
Okay.
Civilization destroying entities. So I still prefer Ghostbusters over ParaNorman.
Sure.
Even though the Lesson in Norman was pretty good, and Lesson in Ghostbusters is, I love this town! So...
Cool.
Yeah, that's right. How about you? Was this something you'd recommend to everybody, or do you say there's enough flaws to say it's something you have to sit down and just turn your brain off a little bit and enjoy?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, yeah, you can't take it too seriously. It's a cartoon about ghosts. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I liked the interaction between sort of the bully who sort of... I mean, that's another common trope, is the bully gets scared straight, kind of... Like, and then he joins forces with the hero.
No one really wanted him to be there, though. He was just kind of with them by circumstance.
Yeah.
Like, what did he really contribute to the whole thing?
Well, I think at some point he did something to help out.
He broke a window.
Oh, yeah, he did.
For them.
Yeah.
He broke a window on their behalf.
Well, and maybe they wouldn't have thought of that.
I'm pretty sure they would have eventually. Although, maybe if someone had their ghostly grandmother to help out by turning a lock on the other side of the door instead of having her stay at home, they wouldn't have needed him at all.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't have to shatter any windows.
She can't evolve with him. Like, he grows up apart away from her. She stays in one place. That's the thing about
She's
ghosts.
knitting something for all eternity. That is a horrible afterlife.
It's not, I can think of worse.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like she never even gets done the one thing. She's apparently just knitting the same stitch over and over for eternity. It's Sisyphean, man. It is hell. It's just without a boulder, and you get, like, the needles. And no chance of using the needles as, like, a weapon, like a kung fu epic movie, man. It's just, no.
At least you never get hungry or tired or anything.
You don't get physically tired. I would get very mentally fatigued very quickly in this world I cannot affect anything in.
Look, this is not your ghost afterlife. Your ghost afterlife would be probably playing some video game or maybe making subs. Or
No, my ghostly afterlife involves more travel.
Yeah, to just driving? Or you mean
you
would...
in a ghost car. Yeah. The first car I ever had, its ghost is waiting for me. Honk, honk, it says the night waiting for me. Honk, honk.
No, but, okay, see, this is the thing that, a ghost does have to do a repetitive action, but it could be something like you could be reading a book. But
it would be the same book
forever. But
I like books, but no book has ever been that good.
You'd forget it every time.
And that doesn't make it any better. That just makes me less efficient. 'Tis a horrible, hellish limbo I exist in.
That's the breaks with becoming a ghost, is you sort of get stuck. You can't do that whole the evolving thing that living people do.
Forget it. I'm just going to wind up being a poltergeist, and I'm going to haunt the bejesus out of any boy that's not good enough for my daughter. And then when she finally finds the right person to settle down with, whatever, I guess I go on to my next, whatever it is.
Cool. Yeah, well, that's a... Sure, why not? Let that be your reason for haunting.
Yeah, got to do something in the afterlife, because it seems really boring over there. Oh my goodness, you can't affect it, so you can't strive towards your goal unless your goal is just wait until this happens and then leave. It is a horrible, boring.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe you can hope that some other mythology is true, where I don't know, get to watch it over
the Norse one would be pretty groovy. Wait, do you have to be female for the Valkyrie? Do they open up for equal opportunity? Can I?
I'd say with the modern era, I think Scandinavia is one of the most progressive areas of the planet, so I think they'd be willing to update.
Valkyro, not Valkyrie. But honestly, the Nordic afterlife seem like they're a lot more you do things. So even if you're in Valhalla and you got to fight every day and party every night, at least you're doing something. Mm-hmm. You're practicing your skills for Ragnarok.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Okay. So we're putting our hopes on that.
An afterlife where you do something. If I'm gonna have to keep existing, I gotta keep doing something. I can't just sit around.
Yeah.
I have problems sleeping sometimes because it seems incredibly inefficient. I want to do something else. I don't want to go to sleep. I don't want to fall unconscious and hallucinate for 8 hours. I'd rather go typing. I'd rather put some ideas down to paper. I'd rather read up on the Wikipedia, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we're going to have to go to sleep, and hopefully our listeners, I don't know if you're listening to this, late at night or in the day, so if you are listening late at night, good night. We'll see you again next week. If you're listening in the day, well, have a good day.
Have a productive and efficient day. Go do something. Even if even if you're just sitting down listening to a podcast and ruminating on that stuff, at least be doing something.
Yeah, and well, I think that we're providing a sort of a useful service in that people, when they listen to the podcast, hopefully they're becoming enlightened. I mean, I don't know, but if that is
I like
the
to think we put an idea in someone's head, and that's all you can do for someone else within reason, right?
Yeah, and
you can't force them to think, but you can at least put the germ of an idea in there to get them down a path.
Yeah, but I think listening to a podcast is technically it is a productive activity. It is.
And best of all, you only really need one sense for it, so you can do something else. So you can be gardening. You can be I can't sleep. I've got insomnia. I'll put on a podcast and scrub the tub clean.
Yep.
Because as the saying goes, either you get tired and you fall asleep, or you still have insomnia. But at least you got a really clean tub. So.
But I guess, probably if people are listening this far, they already know.
Yeah.
Listening to podcasts is great. And
listen to more.
With that, I think we have to figure out a way to end this. We just have to say goodbye, I guess. Goodbye.
Sometimes you just have to know when to stop and fade away. That's the other lesson from ParaNorman. The ghosts are people who cannot accept that. They cannot just fade away.
That's right. So with that, I've been Josh Gillette.
I've been Ryan Kirkby. Have a happy Halloween, eh?
Happy Halloween. Good night.